Hey guys, my name is Megan and I'm one of the behaviors interns here. Jordan is in the room with me, but I'm going to be the one kicking off group today. So today we're talking about communication and setting limits. So the first thing we're going to go over is your communication style. So these are the three types that we've identified as the most common. So type 1 would be identifying that you believe that others' feelings are more important than yours. There's a perfect way to handle every situation. It's your fault if things go wrong, and you have no choice but to comply with what other people want. And the second camp kind of falls under that you believe that it's a dog eat dog world, and you have to defend yourself. You only get, what you fight for. In every interaction, there's a winner and a loser. And the third group is that you believe that it's important to accept responsibility and consider the views of others. You feel confident when talking to others. You feel comfortable expressing your opinions and needs. And you realize and are comfortable with the fact that you may not always get your way. So first, what we're going to do is that if everyone could share in the chat box below what kind of style they feel like they most identify with. So either style 1, 2, or 3. I'm seeing some answers roll in of many people identifying for 3 and also some identifying with camp number 1. I'll wait a few more seconds for some of the, see we have 11 people in now and a few just jumped in. So if you just joined, we're talking about which communication style we feel that we fall under. We have another 1, but also sometimes a 3. So it looks like a lot of people either fall in the 1 category or in the 3 category. So we have Melissa saying that either 1 or 3, but at times can identify with all. Okay, so looking more specifically at the different types. So category 1 can be defined as passive, and this was the one that we talked about. You feel that there's a right way to handle every situation, that no one's feelings being hurt, and that also that other people's feelings are more important than yours. And then the number 3 is assertive. So assertive is expressing your needs and knowing that they deserve to be heard and being directive, but also considering other people's roles. And then number 2 was defined as aggressive. So believing that it's a dog eat dog world and that you have to fight your way in order to get what you want. And so in some situations, all 3 of these communication styles may be applicable, and they kind of depends on what it looks like. But in general, assertive kind of serves as the middle ground. So that's the one that we're really going to be looking at today. And as you can see, some of the drawbacks of mainly communicating in a passive way is that by avoiding confrontation, that you end up feeling that you're forced into things, that you don't feel like your opinion is being heard or being valued, and it may lean into feeling somewhat resentful because you kind of feel like the doormat where everyone else gets a vote except for you. And it can also draw back to wanting to feel that you need to even the score, but you're not able to express this to other people. And some other drawbacks looking at the aggressive style. So number 2 on the first slide we went over is that you're constantly in confrontation. People can view you as hostile or sometimes a bully, and that you're using methods that aren't effective in the long run. So bullying, bulldozing your way, and it can result in a lot of stress. So looking at assertive, um, some benefits of using an using an assertive style is that you're able to express your needs and ask that they be met, and that you're able to foster mutual respect between you and the other individual that you're communicating with. And one way that it can be really beneficial in the long run is that it builds trust in relationships. And so by using an assertive style, you're able to communicate with your loved ones, your significant other, what you need. And this can build trust because has anyone had a friend where it's kind of hard to guess what they want and they don't really tell you, but if you guess the wrong thing, that they kind of get mad about it. So that in that relationship, you can kind of feel distrustful of them because you never know, like, if you're going to set them off. And it can almost be like walking on eggshells because you're not sure what they really want. So by using assertive communication style, you're able to communicate clearly your needs to people. And they also are able to better respond in an appropriate manner. And it also helps build relationships because when you communicate in an assertive way, it's not saying, this is what I want and I'm going to get it. If you don't give me what I want, then I won't like you. It's giving the other person an opportunity to express their desires too. So when you use an assertive style, you are very clear about what your needs are and what you would like and how you would like the other person to help those needs, but you're also leaving space for the other person to express what their needs are and what they would like to see out of it. So thinking particularly about this weight loss journey, how do you think it helps to be assertive regarding weight management? So Dana said that helps to be in control, or you have more control over what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then also the process of figuring out what I need before communicating is helpful. Yeah, so being able to first assess with yourself, what do I need and what are my goals, and what are ways that I can help other people help me. So let's give yourself a break. Consider what's best for me instead of someone else. And I feel like this comes up a lot here is that we have a lot of caretakers in our program. So always putting other people's first. And so part of being assertive is stepping back and saying, what do I need so I can best help others. Through control and help, empowering yourself to take responsibility for your own choices and make the best decisions for me. I feel like that's a really integral piece that kind of encompasses not only empowerment, but also that you have control over how you respond and how you communicate with people. And Dana also said, put ourselves first so we can be there for others. I feel like this is a theme that comes up a lot, especially if you identified that you felt you're more in that passive camp. So that happens a lot when you're always putting others first. You don't want to step on anyone's toes. But in the long run, you don't get the care that you need. And also, it doesn't build very equal relationships. If you're the one always doing everything for everyone else and never being able to express some things that you would like or you would need, it doesn't give people the opportunity to serve you just as much as you serve them. So those are all really helpful encapsulations. So looking at more specific scenarios, what's a response, an assertive response that you could have maybe if friends wanted to go out to dinner at an unhealthy restaurant? What's something that you could say that would be an example of an assertive communication? seeing the multiple attendees are typing. I know, sounds like you guys have some stuff to say. So Stacy gave the example of, would y'all be willing to consider restaurant X or Y where I'll have more healthy choices to order from the menu? Mildred had the example of, I would love to go to eat with you, but can we go somewhere else that has more healthy choices? Yeah, these are both really good examples that being assertive and communicating what you want doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be aggressive. There's a way to express your needs in a way that people will be more receptive. So Mildred is an example of recognizing that you would like to spend time with them and you would like to go out eat with them, but your goals are to be healthy and your goals align with this weight management program. And so a way to do that is by making healthy choices at dinner. Still see more typing, or I'll wait till I move on. So Lynn brings up the point that if everyone wants to go to a particular restaurant that is prohibitive for her, it doesn't seem fair that they shouldn't. Said that I think there's something to eat at every restaurant I go to, even if it's merely eating a smaller portion. So this is another way to be assertive, and I think if you really don't want to, you think it's inconveniencing your friends if you say, I don't want to go there, maybe help them hold you accountable and being honest and recognize, hey, like I get you guys want to go here and I want to spend time with you, and I know you don't have similar goals, but could you help me out by, I want to order a to-go box when I order my meal. Do you mind being a part of this accountability process with me and helping me stay on track? So it is hard if you're going somewhere that has less healthy options. In a way to be assertive and have your needs met is to clearly communicate with others you're with and externalizing what your goals are. So even repeating those goals to people you're going with can help them help you. And other examples of suggesting healthier places and trying to find something healthy on the menu. So even while we're talking about the idea of going out to eat, I know one of the things we suggest is looking at the menu beforehand and going in with a plan. So you can look up the nutrition facts and to know what you are going to get before you get there. And even communicating that with one of your friends, just sometimes verbalizing our goals and our desires helps you stay more accountable for yourself. So looking specifically at weight management, so ways that assertive communication helps is that it allows you to set limits on your resources. So one thing about this program is it is very time intensive. You come in for multiple appointments, you're adding in time to meal prep, to pack your shakes or bars before work when normally you may have just grabbed something out. And so one thing that's really important is to protect your time. And so being assertive and helps you protect your time. For example, if someone asks you to bring something by the PTA bake sale, you can be assertive by saying, I'm sorry, but I really can't, because that's 2 hours you could have spent either exercising or attending a group here or meal prepping. And then by doing that, you're also adding to that temptation. So it helps you set limits. And also in regard to emotional eating. So one thing we see a lot here is that eating to cope with different stressors. So by being assertive, you are giving yourself an outlet to express your emotions and your needs. So instead of keeping them to yourself, where they get all bottled up and you don't feel like your needs are being met. And so maybe you had used to, if you felt upset and that your needs weren't being met, turn to food and go eat something unhealthy. By creating a healthier communication style, you're able to find different ways to handle these outlets for emotions and for upsetting times. It also helps with boundary setting. So the idea that other people are sabotaging my diet or my lifestyle change efforts. and you're able to set boundaries with others by describing to them what you need, and so they can better help you. And also, I don't know if anyone was at the group a few weeks ago where we talked about locus of control. Was anyone real quickly there that can explain to us what locus of control is? Okay, so I don't see anyone typing in confirmation, so I can review it real quick. So locus of control is where you think, so there's internal locus of control, which is the idea that I control how I behave and what happens in my life. And there's external locus of control, which is that the world decides and external factors decide what goes on. So being an assertive communicator helps you increase your locus of control, because you can't control everything that happens out there, but you can control how you respond. So you can't control the fact that places like Krispy Kreme, Five Guys, McDonald's are more common than any healthy restaurant, but you can control whether you go there, and you can control whether you communicate to someone that, hey, that's not really in line with my goals right now. I prefer if we could go X, Y, Z. And so you can respond and control like how you respond to those requests and how you communicate with people about your goals. So increasing your locus of control can help you feel more empowered. It can also help you feel that you have control over what you choose, and it also helps you help other people help you. I see 2 people respond to their first meeting here, so welcome. Glad it's your first one. So does anyone have any quick questions about the things we covered about emotional eating, boundary setting, or locus of control? Real quick. So Shannon brings up, so the correct answer to the previous scenario is ask your friends to go somewhere else, question mark. So for this, there is no right or wrong. I think how you would respond to that scenario depends a lot on your own limits. So maybe if it's the very beginning of your journey here and you know yourself well enough to know that if I go there, I'm not going to order the healthy thing, or maybe it's a place where there's unlimited chips and salsa or bread, and you know that, and you have enough self-awareness that if I show up there, it's not going to go well and it's not going to go in line with my plans. So maybe at that stage of your journey, it is taking the step, being like, I'd really love for you to go, and either, but I can't. I already packed my lunch, or I'm going to eat dinner at home. So either removing yourself from the situation, or if you feel comfortable asking your friends, would you guys mind if we go here instead? And then maybe later on in your journey, when you are feeling more confident, and that you know that if you go there, that you'll be able to get that to-go box, put half in between, or that you'll be able to abstain from all those unlimited things they put out for first. Maybe that is the time that you can go to that less healthy restaurant and still be able to make healthier decisions. It really is a personal preference, but 2 ideas of possible responses is 1, to suggest a healthier place, 2, not go if you really feel like it's not going to be a place where you can control yourself. And Lynn suggested that maybe eat something before you leave so you're not so hungry when you get there and you don't want your friends to give up friends because of your eating plan. Yeah, that's another really helpful suggestion, Lynn, of maybe eating one of your shakes before, depending what the timing is. And then so when you get there, you can just order maybe that side salad without being in a lot of pain of watching everyone else eat when you're still really hungry. Thank you. That's really helpful. If you guys ever have any comments of experiences that have worked for you, please feel free anytime to type them in that chat box. I know everyone really benefits from those too. Yeah, most of the time it is really hard because everything seems centered around food and eating. And I think that kind of ties back to that internal locus of control, is that we can't control kind of the society that we live in. That a lot of it is centered around, that a lot of the social activities are centered around drinking and also eating, which are two things that for weight management can be kind of troublesome. So it's hard when you've changed your mindset and you've changed your eating and exercise patterns, but everyone else isn't. So that's why it helps, groups like this, or maybe the Monday night group, where you can be surrounded by people that are going through a very similar process. And it's a good way to bounce ideas off each other, and also to feel maybe a little less overwhelmed, that you may feel that you're the only one who is having to eat every 3 hours a day and having to be really conscious about these, about food choices and exercise. So, what kind of challenges have you encountered with dealing with others in relation to your attempts to change your lifestyle? Hmm. So Peggy reports that she's had really positive support. And we also have examples of being asked to go get fast food for people, struggling with family, not having aligned goals, and sharing as an example of her daughter texting her if she wanted anything from Taco Bell. And we have a lot of examples of different challenges. And friends over asking about what you're eating, and Mildred gives the example of asking why I don't eat certain foods and saying a little won't hurt you. And then Sharon gives the example of husband bringing back Pepperidge Farm Chessman, all-time favorite, the other night. Those are very good. Yeah, so these are all examples of how sometimes it's really hard when other people's goals don't align with ours. And these are all really good examples of when assertive communication would have been helpful. So just picking from some of the examples that are brought up here, maybe let's take Sharon's example of when her daughter sent a text the other night asking if she wanted anything from Taco Bell. What do you think a way that Sharon could have given assertive communication? Maybe a combination of appreciating that her daughter was thinking of her, but asking her to not really ask her that anymore, and that doesn't line up with her goals. Sharon said, I failed that one. Her response was, are you serious? And she immediately remembered and apologized. So, yeah, sometimes, especially your text, that does happen. And so, not that there's any wrong way to respond to things. So, maybe in the future, if someone texts you, either, hey, can you go grab some fast food for me, or two, if you want anything, a response of, I appreciate you thinking about me, but that doesn't align with my health goals right now, and I would appreciate if you wouldn't ask me in the future. So we're going to talk next about different skills regarding communication. So we'll kind of unpack that a little more. So related, talking about skill building. So, I mean, a lot of people answered, and I'm sure it's experienced either the passive versus the assertive. So when learning something new, it always takes more time than you think, because you're fighting against X number of years where you've used that communication style. The first step is kind of learning what the appropriate skills surrounding this new technique is. So one thing to keep in mind is the idea that timing is everything. So there is a place for assertive communication, but kind of being cognizant of when and where you're doing that. So if you're trying to be assertive with your boss about how either you want to raise or you feel that you should have more days off, the wrong place for that would be at a meeting where there's 30 other people. And that's kind of an extreme example, but keeping in mind what the purpose of the setting is, how long it's going to take, So a way to handle that better would be to maybe grab them at the end of the meeting, say, hey, can I talk to you about something? When would be a good time to step by? So doing things privately with only the person that it concerns can be really helpful, because no one really likes feeling on the spot in front of a lot of other people. So dragging someone aside and not doing it in a way to embarrass them, say messed up, but doing it from a very genuine place of, this is what's going on with me and this is what I need your help with. And then also looking at skills is empathy. So if this is a really big situation that you feel that you need to confront someone, maybe try practicing what you're going to say. And so it may seem silly, but we do a lot of role playing and counseling and behaviors visits, and it really is helpful to hear it out loud and then to just take a second to pause and think about how you would feel if that was directed at you. And recognizing that while it is, you do want to express your own needs, that other people have needs that want to be met too. Um, and he's doing it tactfully, so privately, like we mentioned before, and using appropriate language, with an even voice, not yelling, not raising your voice, but taking some time and really thinking about what you want to say and what your goals are surrounding what you're going to say and how that might be met. And another good communication technique is to be direct and specific. So instead of like getting worked up and saying you always bring junk food, instead thinking of a specific instance. So more, last night when you ordered a pizza, blank. So not using a general statement, but helping the person understand where you're coming from by being able to take them back to that specific instant where it happened. And so tied with using that direct and specific instance is also the idea of I messages. So I messages are, I feel blank when you ... So it's really hard to argue with how people feel. If you tell your friend, I feel sad, no one's going to be like, no, you don't feel sad, because you're the one who knows how you feel, and that is what you are experiencing. So instead of blaming or saying you do this, instead kind of redirecting the attention from where, but from what the person is doing to how you makes it feel, can help the message be better received. So we're going to go more into how iMessages can be really helpful in expressing what you need and how other people can help you. So looking at specifically the DES model. So DES is 1, describe the problem situation, 2, indicate the impact it has on you, and 3, specify your needs. So with that example that we brought up earlier of, instead of saying you always bring junk food in the house, instead maybe creating a statement like, last night when you brought back a pizza, so describing the problem situation in a direct, specific, and respectful way, and then the impact has on you. It made me really hungry and it made me upset, comma, then specifying your needs. So if you want pizza, could you maybe eat it out instead of bringing it home? Or if you're going to order pizza, could you do it before I get back? Or just giving any example of what they could do instead. So this is an empowering approach because you're expressing your needs and your emotions, and it's also more likely to be received well, because instead of it being viewed as complaining about a problem or blaming, you're very specifically explaining what happened and the effect that it personally had on you. And it's helpful to also give alternatives. And so that falls into specifying your needs of how the other person could help you. And this isn't the catch-all of, if you do this, everyone will get along and it will be great, but it can be really helpful when you're first, especially with a specific issue like weight management. It can help to kind of have this guidelines of how can you communicate with other people, the ways that they can best help you. See someone typing too. Peaceful. So looking at this DES model, can anyone, let's see, thinking of a scenario of what using this model, let's say we'll go back to the example of your husband brought back Pepperidge Farm chessmen, which I think are cookies. So let's take that and try to break it down into DES of how we could respond. So the problem situation would be last night when you brought back my favorite cookie, and what are some examples of what effect that would have on you? And anyone can answer, not just the woman who brought up what had happened. So what are some different effects we could talk about? Mm-hmm. So it tempted me. Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like that's definitely relatable. So last night when you brought my favorite cookie home, I thought about cookies all night and it was hard to stay on plan. Yeah, so this one action that can't say it wasn't malicious. It wasn't trying to attack the person who's trying to stay on plan eating, but it did have a significant effect. So it threw off your mood because you were tempted, and a lot of goes on with that. So maybe you were feeling guilty that you're tempted, or you're just really upset that you couldn't have something you wanted. So small actions can have very large ripple effects. And so by using this model, by pointing out to someone the specific action that led to this, it can help them in the future be a better support for you. And so for S, what are some examples of way that we could specify our needs for this situation? So the problem situation, so last night when you brought back those cookies, it made me either think about cookies all night, it made me really tempted, and then Melissa, who brought the drink, said it made me feel like he didn't care, which made me mad, which made me want to eat my favorite treat. I feel like that is a very relatable kind of cause and effect process. So it'd be last night you brought back the cookies, made me feel that you weren't on my side with this plan, or it made me really upset because I didn't feel supported. And I'm seeing a lot of people agreeing with this issue of that when people bring back these foods that aren't on plan, it makes you feel alone because you can't eat, or not that you can't, but it's not on plan to eat these foods. Because that can feel isolating and unsupporting sometimes. And so looking at specify your needs, we have an example of I need to keep the kitchen free of foods that are tempting to me. So maybe this looks like I'm going to have my cabinet and do not put anything in this cabinet that might be tempting. So you have your space in the kitchen with your on-plan foods, and if other people in your family want to eat off-plan, you ask them to put them in their space and either not leave them out on the counter where you can see them, or put them in a place that you don't frequent. You don't frequent. And that can be it's a really good example of how assertive communication can look at just tweaking small things. So it's not a huge inconvenience for a loved one to not leave something out on the counter. And it can be something that helps your relationship because it's a small thing where now maybe you don't feel as much resentment because they aren't helping you or aren't being supportive for your goals. And also, they're happy because they don't feel like that you're getting upset about certain things. And so maybe having separate cabinets or just asking people not to leave stuff out on the counter where you can easily see it can all be ways of just small tweaks. So looking at this whole model in summary, the example that we gave was, so last night when you brought back those chessman cookies, it made me upset and it made me really tempted to go off plan, and some other effects were that it made me feel that you didn't care about my diet plan. It made me feel alone. Maybe not all the effects, but you could choose one or two. And then you end it by specifying your needs. So it would be helpful for me if you had your own cabinet where you put the cookies, and I had my own cabinet where I could keep my on-hand food. Or if you bring back chessman cookies, don't put them in my face. Like, you may eat them, but don't be showing them off, and don't leave them on the counter, please. So kind of just the encapsulating way to communicate what you need and have the other individual understand where you're coming from and other ways that you guys can navigate it together. So looking at difficult scenarios, so especially if you fall in that passive camp, one thing that can be really hard, and I think is kind of what we've been talking about this whole group, is refusing requests. So we talked about someone's going out to dinner, the unhealthy place, either saying no or suggesting something different. So these are kind of where it gets tricky, because just because you're on a weight management program does not mean that your social support system should suffer. And it does not mean that you should be experiencing a lower quality of life. But you do have to be responsible, and you have control of what you engage in and how you can react. So looking at refusing requests, it's important to remember that no can be a sentence. You don't owe people an explanation. You don't owe people to understand what you've been going through. It is sufficient and it is polite to say no. Say, thank you for the offer, but no. If you are like me and really want to make sure you cover your bases of being polite. And also looking at compromise. So when we talk about assertive communication style, it comes with the understanding that although that you are responsible to express your own needs and your desires, that you aren't the only person that is within your system. So maybe finding a way that both people can get what they need. And I think using this communication style just opens up the pathway for a constructive conversation of, this is where I'm standing, tell me about your point of view, and tell me about also what I can be doing to better support you. And then when refusing requests, it's helpful to use empathic assertions. So it's a fancy word for saying, I understand. So being on the program does affect the people in your family. And so maybe just recognizing that can go a really long way of, I understand that it's hard for you that I'm changing my lifestyle, or I understand that you're frustrated that we no longer can go, or we no longer go to elaborate dinners with wine, or whatever other people in your life are kind of affected by because of your decision to make this change for yourself and to live a healthier life. And also, even if they do mess up every now and then and they bring back those cookies, if they are being supportive 90% of the time, recognizing that and being like, I appreciate your support. I know you want what's best for me. I know you want me to live a healthy life. So giving the people in our lives and ourselves a lot of grace when it comes to slip-ups like that. And another way is specifically looking at refusing requests is using mixed feelings statements. So I think that's also kind of related to empathic assertion and compromise, in that using the example of, I really wish I could go with you for margs and salsa at the Mexican restaurant, but it's really important. My health is really important to me right now. So maybe not the complete shutdown, and not being like, no, in a way that people don't understand that there is a struggle going on within you, that you want to keep up your social support. And yeah, a lot of that stuff is fun and is something you should derive a lot of enjoyment of. But remembering what your long-term goals are, and even if your program's 6 months or a year long, that this is the process of changing your lifestyle. So it makes sense that there's resentment within yourself to be frustrated that you can't do some of the things that you used to be able to do. And it's also hard when people change, when other people in our life are changing how they behave, that there's kind of this equilibrium that got disrupted. So this is what they always used to know, and now you're the one going out there making a better life and living a healthier life. So it is hard, but there's ways to handle it in an appropriate manner. And Stacey brings up the example of founding her, having to tell her friends that this won't be forever. And that's kind of a tricky one because maybe in a year when you're out of the program, you can, and you deserve to do this, treat yourself or treat nights every once in a while. And it is hard when you are changing how you want to live your life. And I don't know if that's something that people foresaw before coming to the program. I think that's been one thing that's been surprising for me. On the other side of it is recognizing that it does affect a lot of the facets of your life. And so it affects people in your family, affects your social support group. But I think when you're faced with those kinds of thoughts that it won't be forever, it's helpful to really go back to those motivations of what brought you here and what your long-term goals are, and not just the number on your scale, but those non-scale goals that are really our main motivators of maybe it's I want to be around for my kids and I want to be able to run up and down with them instead of having to play sitting on the ground, or that I want to live a healthy life so I can live longer and be there to see grandchildren or accomplish those things I always wanted to do. So in summary, it takes a lot of balance and it takes a lot of cooperation from the people in your life. And I think coming at it from like an honest and genuine place and recognizing to them that you know it's hard and you know it's different, but it's important to you. Your true support group and the people in your life want you to be happy. And if you phrase in a way of, this is my goal, this is what I want out of life, they will be able to come alongside you if you do it in an effective way. So we've done a lot of real life scenarios. And throughout the group, I was wondering if anyone else had examples or after hearing all of this, additional questions about what scenarios this would be applicable in, or if you have a specific one that you feel like you need to consult the group about, feel free to type it in now. So Stacey brings up the example of friends and coworkers who assume that because I'm visibly losing weight, I must want to talk about it, what I'm eating, what a good diet is, and so on. Is there anyone else who can kind of relate to this issue of that? Because when people compliment, like, oh, you lost weight, like, sometimes they're coming it from a really good place of like wanting to commend you, but can also be kind of frustrating to have that be the main focus all the time, especially when it's something you're already preoccupied with. It also sounds like that people are asking Stacey kind of her suggestions, since she's had success, what she's eating, what they should be eating, and so on. See a person typing, so I'll wait for them. Okay, first week, so haven't had all the scenarios come up yet. So I think just kind of looking at what Stacey has brought up. So if you have the issue of everything in your life might seem to focus around weight management, and so maybe you want to break when you're at work or you're hanging out with your friends, that you come here and you talk about what you eat, if you've been exercising, and other things that are going on. So maybe communicating with your friends of, I appreciate that you recognize the work I'm doing, but there's a lot of other stuff going on too, and maybe bringing up something else that's been going on with you that you would like to talk about, because everything's not about your weight. And I think that's important for other people to recognize too, is that you have a lot of other things that are going on that maybe you need support in. So maybe appreciating or communicating that you appreciate that they're noticing or that they're interested in what's going on with you, and also bringing up another thing, like so maybe your work, extracurriculars you're interested in, other hobbies. So kind of maybe steering the conversation direction that feels more comfortable. And Sharon asks if there's any other support options online. No. Oh, yes. So every one of these online support groups is recorded and is set up on a YouTube channel. So in either your Optifast or your Essentials newsletter, it'll have a link not only to how to join the weekly group, but also it'll take you to a link with all the other previous groups. So if you can't make it every week, it doesn't have the same interactive component in that you can't share, but it records kind of what I see. So have all the conversations as they had happened. So that can be a good option if you can't make it to this one every week. So if there aren't any more questions, thank you guys so much for being such an interactive group. And make sure to fill out the evaluation questionnaire that shows up when this ends. And have a good rest of your week.